Football is the most watched sport on the planet. Billions of people tune in every week to see skill, passion, and competition at the highest level. But sometimes, what happens on the pitch goes far beyond the game itself.
Escalating racism row, which again centres around Vinicius Jr.
Racism has been a stain on football for decades, and despite all the campaigns, all the slogans, and all the pledges, it keeps showing up. And when it does, it doesn't discriminate. It happens in domestic leagues, in lower divisions, and right in the middle of the biggest stages in the world. Today, we're looking at 6 footballers who were found guilty or are currently under investigation for racist behaviour. No speculation, no rumours, just the facts. And we're starting with the most recent case, one that is still making headlines as of February 2026. On February 17th, 2026, Real Madrid travelled to Lisbon to face Benfica in the first leg of the UEFA Champions League knockout playoffs. Vinicius Jr., one of the best players in the world, scored a brilliant curling goal in the 50th minute to give Real Madrid the lead. He celebrated by dancing at the corner flag, as he often does, a celebration that earned him a yellow card from referee François Letexier. But what happened next stopped the entire match. Argentine winger Gianluca Prestianni walked up to Vinicius and covered his mouth with his shirt before saying something directly to the Brazilian. Vinicius didn't hesitate. He sprinted straight to the referee and reported what he had heard. Letexier responded by crossing his arms in front of his face, activating FIFA's 3-step anti-racism protocol and halting the match entirely. For nearly 11 minutes, the game was stopped. Real Madrid players were visibly furious. Kylian Mbappe, who said he was standing close enough to hear, told reporters after the game that Prestianni had covered his mouth to hide his lips from cameras and then called Vinicius a monkey 5 times. "I heard it," Mbappe said. "There are Benfica players who heard it too. This player doesn't deserve to play in the Champions League anymore." Teammate Aurelien Tchouameni echoed the allegation, and Real Madrid captain Federico Valverde pointed out that if someone covers their mouth while speaking to someone, that alone says a lot. Vinicius later posted on Instagram, "Racists are, above all, cowards. They need to put their shirts over their mouths to show how weak they are. Nothing that happened today is new in my life or my family's life." Prestianni denied everything. In a statement on Instagram, the 19-year-old said Vinicius had simply misunderstood what he heard and insisted he had never been racist toward anyone. Benfica backed their player fully and accused Real Madrid of running a defamation campaign against him. Manager Jose Mourinho, who was later sent off during the match, even suggested that Vinicius had provoked the situation with his goal celebration, comments that were quickly and widely criticised. Former Real Madrid midfielder Clarence Seedorf, working as a pundit at the game, said Mourinho had made a big mistake by appearing to justify racial abuse in any form. UEFA moved quickly. An ethics and disciplinary inspector was appointed to investigate. Real Madrid submitted all available evidence. FIFA President Gianni Infantino released a statement saying he was shocked and saddened and reaffirming that there is absolutely no room for racism in our sport. Meanwhile, objects were thrown from the stands at Vinicius while he attempted to take a corner in stoppage time, adding yet another layer to a chaotic and ugly night at the Estadio da Luz. If Prestianni is found guilty under UEFA's Article 14, he faces a ban of at least 10 matches. As of now, the investigation is ongoing. This wasn't the first time Vinicius had been through something like this. In 2023, 3 Vinicius fans were jailed for 8 months for racially abusing him during a La Liga match, the first verdict of its kind in Spain. A game was stopped for 10 minutes that night too. Vinicius had said in 2024 that racist abuse was making him feel less and less like playing football. Yet here he was again, celebrating a Champions League goal, then running to a referee. The difference this time was that the accused was another player, not a fan in a stadium. And this case reminds us that racism doesn't just follow certain players, it follows the sport itself. The next man on this list found that out the hard way in a case that shook English football to its core. John Terry was the captain, the leader, the player you wanted next to you in the trenches. At Chelsea, he was an icon, one of the best defenders in Premier League history, a 4-time UEFA Team of the Year selection, and England captain on 2 separate occasions. But on October 23, 2011, during a Premier League match between Chelsea and QPR at Loftus Road, all of that was overshadowed by a single moment that followed him for the rest of his career. During a heated exchange with QPR defender Anton Ferdinand, Terry was caught on camera using deeply offensive language. Video footage quickly spread online and sparked a criminal investigation. Terry was charged by the Crown Prosecution Service with a racially aggravated public order offence. The case went to trial in July 2012 at Westminster Magistrates Court. Terry admitted in court that he had used the words "f***ing black cunt" toward Ferdinand. His defense was that he was not using them as an insult, but was instead repeating what he believed Ferdinand had accused him of saying, sarcastically throwing the words back. The magistrate found there was not enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the words were used as a direct insult, and Terry was cleared. That could have been the end of it. But the FA wasn't done. On July 27, 2012, the FA charged Terry under Rule E3 for using abusive and/or insulting words that included a reference to colour and race. This charge operated under a lower burden of proof than a criminal court, balance of probabilities rather than beyond reasonable doubt. Terry was furious. He announced his retirement from international football the day before the hearing began, saying the FA had made his position in the national team untenable. After a 4-day hearing, the Independent Regulatory Commission found Terry guilty. He was handed a 4-match ban and a fine of $220,000. The commission published a 63-page report labeling key parts of his defense as improbable, implausible, and contrived. They concluded that the words were said by way of insult, and not as any kind of sarcastic challenge or repetition. Terry chose not to appeal and issued a public apology, saying the language he used was not acceptable on the football field, or indeed in any walk of life. But many felt the apology fell short because it was never directed personally at Anton Ferdinand. The fallout stretched far beyond Terry himself. England manager Fabio Capello had already resigned earlier in 2012, partly in frustration over the FA's decision to strip Terry of the captaincy before any verdict had been reached. Ferdinand spent years dealing with the aftermath. Racist abuse flooded his social media, bullets were sent to him in the post, and his mother's house was targeted. Years later, he made a BBC documentary about the experience titled Football, Racism and Me, laying it all out in painful detail. Terry's 4-match ban was widely criticised as far too lenient, especially compared to the 8-match ban handed to another player for a similar offence around that same period. Former England striker Gary Lineker pointed it out publicly, calling it barely more than a standard red card suspension. Joey Barton, who received a 12-game ban for violent conduct that same season, called the disparity an absolute farce. Those comparisons stuck. That player is next, and his case added a very different kind of controversy to an already troubled chapter in the Premier League. If John Terry's case was defined by words caught on camera during a heated match, the next one was a gesture, a deliberate, calculated gesture, made right in front of the people it was targeting, with cameras rolling. On November 10, 2017, Colombia played South Korea in a friendly in Suwon. Colombia lost 2-1. Late in the second half, a scuffle broke out between the two sides after James Rodriguez fouled Kim Jin-soo. As officials stepped in to calm the situation, Colombian substitute Edwin Cardona walked away from the group, turned toward the South Korean players, and pulled the corners of his eyes back with both fingers, a slanted eyes gesture, one of the most recognizable and offensive racist gestures targeting people of Asian descent. The cameras captured every second of it. The reaction was immediate. South Korea captain Ki Sung-yueng called the behavior absolutely unacceptable after the match. The Korean Football Association submitted a formal protest to FIFA. Social media erupted with outrage from across the world. Cardona apologized the very next day. In a video posted on Colombia's official Twitter account, he said it was not my intention to disrespect anyone, any country or any race, and that the moment had been misinterpreted. But what he did was not ambiguous. No lip reading was needed. No analysis of tone or context. The gesture was on camera, in full view, directed at his opponents. FIFA launched an investigation and, in December 2017, handed Cardona a 5-match suspension and a fine of 20,000 Swiss francs, roughly $20,000 at the time. The suspension was to be served across Colombia's upcoming friendly matches. And here's the part that frustrated many people. Because the ban was restricted to friendlies, Cardona was available again in time to represent Colombia at the 2018 World Cup, their opening match against Japan, another Asian nation, right next to South Korea. A lot of people felt FIFA had sent exactly the wrong message with that call. Cardona had already built a reputation for poor discipline long before this incident. Between 2016 and 2017 alone, he had been sent off 5 times, averaging a red card roughly every 10 games. At Boca Juniors, he received 2 red cards in just 7 appearances. His talent was never in doubt. He was a gifted playmaker with exceptional ball control and set-piece ability, but his behavior on and off the pitch was a constant issue. His former Monterrey coach once publicly called him an overgrown baby. The racist gesture against South Korea was the lowest point of all that. Ki Sung-yueng said it was disappointing to see a player from a team with world-class talent behave in such a way. Colombia's Football Federation apologized to South Korea. Cardona served his 5 games and moved on. For many watching, the lightness of the punishment raised serious questions about whether football was truly committed to change. Those same questions had surfaced years earlier when an 8-game ban in England was handed down, and even that felt like it hadn't been enough for the damage that had already been done. That ban involved one of the Premier League's most electric players, a language debate that crossed continents, and a club response that made things significantly worse. Few players in Premier League history were as dangerous to face as Luis Suarez. The Uruguayan striker arrived at Liverpool in January 2011 and immediately became one of the most feared forwards in European football. Quick, relentless, and impossible to predict, he was the kind of player who made something happen every time he touched the ball. But on October 15, 2011, during a 1-1 draw between Liverpool and Manchester United at Anfield, his name became tied to something far darker than football. Manchester United defender Patrice Evra accused Suarez of racially abusing him during a second-half exchange near the corner flag. Evra reported it to referee Andre Mariner immediately after the incident, then spoke to Sir Alex Ferguson in the dressing room, and the two went to formally lodge the complaint in the referee's room after the final whistle. On French television that same evening, Evra said Suarez had directed a racial slur at him more than 10 times. Suarez denied the allegation. He admitted using the word but said it was not a racial insult. In Uruguay and much of Latin America, he explained, it is used as a casual or even affectionate term to address someone. He also noted that his grandfather was black and that he had been personally involved in charitable work promoting racial solidarity since the 2010 World Cup. The FA launched a formal investigation. Linguistic experts were brought in. Video was analysed. Testimony was taken from players, coaches, and officials on both sides. The hearing ran for 6 full days. In December 2011, the Independent Regulatory Commission found Suarez guilty of using insulting words that included a reference to Evra's colour. He was banned for 8 matches and fined $40,000. The Commission's 115-page report was damning. It concluded that Suarez had used the word toward Evra 7 times during the exchange. His evidence was described as unreliable and inconsistent. Evra, by contrast, was called calm, composed, and clear. Crucially, the experts confirmed that even in Uruguay, using that word in the context of a heated, acrimonious argument would be considered racially offensive. Liverpool's response added fuel to an already blazing fire. The club released a statement calling it extraordinary that Suarez could be found guilty and insisted he had committed no racist act. Then, ahead of their first match after the ban began, the entire squad walked out for warm-ups wearing t-shirts supporting Suarez. Anti-racism organisations were appalled. Liverpool ultimately chose not to appeal and accepted the ban. Suarez served the suspension. But when the two clubs met again in February 2012, Suarez refused to shake Evra's hand before kickoff, a moment caught on television and seen by millions. He apologised later. It took years for some of the wounds from that saga to close. In 2019, Jamie Carragher issued a public apology to Evra for wearing that t-shirt. The club eventually sent Evra a letter of apology as well. Racism cases have a way of outlasting the match, the ban, and even the careers involved, and the next case on this list proves that point all over again, this time from the English Championship. The Championship is England's second tier, not the glamour of the Premier League, not the European Knights of the Champions League, but serious professional football with full stadiums and real careers on the line. And it was here, on February 15th, 2025, that Burnley midfielder Hannibal Mabry found himself at the centre of an incident he said he had never experienced before. Preston North End were hosting Burnley at Deepdale. The game ended 0-0. Midway through the second half, there was a heated verbal exchange between Hannibal and Preston forward Milutin Osmajic. The cameras caught Hannibal reacting with fury before walking straight to referee Andrew Kitchen and reporting the incident. He played on until being substituted in the 71st minute, but was visibly shaken throughout. After the match, Hannibal posted on Instagram, "I will not be silent about what happened today. I will always call out racism whenever I hear or see it. That is the only way we change as a sport and a society. I am a strong person, but nobody should have to experience this disgusting abuse on the pitch." Osmajic denied the allegation immediately. Preston released a statement saying their player had strongly refuted the claims in a meeting with officials after the final whistle. They offered to assist with any investigation while firmly standing behind Osmajic. The FA confirmed it was looking into the matter. In March 2025, the FA formally charged Osmajic under Rule E3 for using abusive and insulting words with a reference to colour and race, classified as an aggravated breach. He denied the charge and had until late March to respond. The situation became even more charged when the two clubs met again just 2 weeks later in the FA Cup 5th round. Burnley's players refused to shake Osmagic's hand before kickoff in a public show of solidarity with Hannibal. Burnley manager Scott Parker left Hannibal out of the matchday squad entirely, saying he wanted to protect his player. Osmagic scored Preston's second goal in a 3-0 win and cupped his ears toward the Burnley fans during his celebration, an image that angered many watching. The FA hearing took place in September 2025. In November 2025, the Independent Regulatory Commission found the charge proven. Osmagic was handed a 9-match ban, fined $21,000, and ordered to complete a mandatory education course. Preston expressed their disappointment, noting the case had been decided on balance of probabilities rather than beyond reasonable doubt, and continued to support their player. Osmagic maintained his innocence throughout. It was the second major ban he had received in consecutive seasons. In 2024, he had served an 8-game suspension for biting Blackburn Rovers defender Owen Beck, a charge he admitted and was fined $15,000 for. Anti-discrimination charity Kick It Out praised Hannibal's courage in speaking up and said his decision to call it out immediately was exactly how the sport needed people to respond. Some of the most important moments in football's fight against racism happen not under the Champions League lights, but in the middle of a quiet championship afternoon. And that's equally true for the final name on this list. A case that started in Scotland, came down to one man's word against another, and ended with a verdict that still stands. Scotland's top flight doesn't always command the same global attention as the Premier League or La Liga, but in September 2014, the Scottish Premiership produced one of the most significant racism cases in the history of British football, a case that turned on the credibility of two men and resulted in a verdict that a senior judge upheld in full. On September 13, 2014, Celtic beat Aberdeen 2-1 at Celtic Park. Bulgarian winger Aleksandar Tonev, on loan from Aston Villa, was making his Celtic debut that day after spending the early part of the season recovering from a groin injury. During the second half, Aberdeen fullback Shay Logan alleged that Tonev turned to him during a physical exchange and said, "Don't touch me, you black." Logan didn't hesitate. He reported it on the spot to referee Bobby Madden, then to his captain Mark Reynolds, then to manager Derek McInnes. The fourth official was also informed. It was a clear and immediate chain of reporting. Tonev denied it completely. Celtic backed their player and released a statement saying they believed his account. The SFA launched its disciplinary process, and in October 2014, after a hearing at Hampton Park, the judicial panel found Tonev guilty of excessive misconduct by the use of offensive, insulting, and abusive language of a racist nature. He was handed a 7-match ban. Celtic appealed. In December 2014, an appeal tribunal chaired by senior judge Lord Bonamy threw the appeal out. The published report made their reasoning very clear. Logan was described as an impressive witness who gave his evidence in a careful and measured manner. Tonev, by contrast, gave his evidence in a guarded and hesitant manner. The panel stated they were unable to accept him as either credible or reliable. One of the most notable moments in the hearing came when Tonev's knowledge of the offensive language itself was examined. He initially claimed during proceedings that he didn't know what the word meant. Under cross-examination, he admitted he had heard it used as a term of abuse during his time at Aston Villa. The tribunal said this gave the impression of someone giving a less than full account of his actual understanding and called his testimony inherently improbable. The 7-match ban stood. Tonev released a statement via Celtic's website saying he would move on and again insisting he was not a racist. Shay Logan's response was short and to the point. Do the crime serve the time? Celtic said they were extremely disappointed and would approach the SFA for further dialogue, but made clear they were not accusing Logan of any false allegations. They maintained Tonev's consistent position had been that Logan misheard him, but the tribunal had considered that argument and rejected it twice. Aston Villa called racism abhorrent and said there would be no further comment while the process was ongoing. Anti-racism group Show Racism. The red card welcomed the outcome and said it sent a clear message that the SFA was taking the issue seriously. What made this case stand out wasn't just the verdict, it was the process. Logan reporting it immediately, the officials following the right procedures, and a disciplinary body doing its job even without witnesses or audio evidence. Two accounts of what happened, a panel that had to decide which one to believe. They believed Logan, and however uncomfortable that truth was for everyone involved, the sport moved one step closer to the kind of accountability it has promised for years. Which story on this list shocked you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goal Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.